Coming up on this edition of Maximus Aviation News, I'll catch you up with the latest on the investigation of the crash of a China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737. Plus, I'll tell you about a serious incident on a Boeing 777 landing in Paris. Also, a SpiceJet Boeing 737 takes out a light pole in Delhi, and a Delta 757 cockpit window shatters over Denver. Also, another Boeing 737-800 takes a terrifying mid-air dive in Malaysia, and a DHL Boeing 757 skids off a Costa Rican runway and splits in two. Also, a Singapore Airlines Boeing 777 suffers engine troubles, and once again Boeing finds itself embarrassed over more Air Force One issues. And finally, a Boeing KC-46 Pegasus refueling tanker suffers a defect that only Velcro can fix. And believe it or not, all that happened just in the last 30 days. So sit back, grab a beverage, and relax, because it's time for an all-Boeing edition of Maximus Aviation News. Greetings everybody, Maximus here with a special all-Boeing edition of the news. Well, 2022 got off to a pretty good start for Boeing. That is, at least until March rolled around. So let's begin with the biggest Boeing story in March, with the latest news on the crash of China Eastern Airlines Flight 5735. The U.S. National Transportation Safety Board says it's helping China download information from the flight data and cockpit voice recorders of Flight 5735. Both black boxes from the China Eastern Airlines Boeing 737 that crashed in southern China last month are now being analyzed by the NTSB in Washington. However, there is a real possibility that both boxes may have been damaged by the impact of the crash. It took 2 days to find the cockpit voice recorder among the 49,000 pieces of scattered debris, and 6 days for the flight data recorder, which was buried 5 feet underground. The NTSB arrived in China last weekend to assist the investigation by the Civil Aviation Administration of China. Chinese officials have said a preliminary investigation report would be completed within 30 days of the crash. More than 200 of China Eastern's Boeing 737-800 planes remain grounded. Aviation safety officials in France have opened an investigation regarding an incident on Air France Flight 11 on April 5th from New York to Paris. The Boeing 777-300 was on an autoland approach to Paris Charles de Gaulle Airport due to poor weather and low visibility, when suddenly, to quote the pilot, the plane just went nuts on its ILS approach. Pilots were forced to abort their landing and go around. However, as they struggled to control the Boeing 777, they inadvertently keyed the mic, allowing the ATC to hear the dramatic struggle taking place in the cockpit. Some of you may have already heard that audio. I reached out to airlive.com for permission to play the audio, but they declined. But on a cockpit recording, pilots can be heard battling with the aircraft's controls while the emergency alarms sound. Alerting air traffic controllers to the crisis, one says, "Wait, stop," before adding, "I'll call you back, I'll call you back." He later adds the airplane is pretty much going nuts. But finally, at just around 1,200 feet, they managed to go around. They returned to Charles de Gaulle Airport for a safe landing on runway 27 right. Then on Friday, April 8th, the French paper La Tribune reported that Boeing has checked the flight data recorder and said they found no technical issues with the aircraft. Boeing stated that the aircraft responded appropriately to the commands of the flight crew. However, that news isn't official yet, and the investigation will continue. Well, on Monday, March 28th, a SpiceJet Boeing 737-800 jet collided with an electric light pole at Delhi Airport during pushback from the terminal, with a plane load of passengers along to witness the embarrassing doink. The flight was headed for Jammu before its right wing hit the light pole, damaging the aileron. The aircraft had to return to the terminal, of course, and the passengers were boarded onto another plane. Well, the U.S. FAA said they will be investigating what went wrong when the cockpit windscreen of a Delta Boeing 757 cracked in midair during a flight from Salt Lake City, Utah to Washington, D.C. on Thursday, March 31st. The FAA spokesperson said the 757 made a safe emergency landing in Denver at around 11:35 a.m. after the crew declared an emergency due to a cracked windshield. A Delta spokesperson said that there had been a maintenance issue mid-flight, but did not elaborate. Out of an abundance of caution, the flight crew diverted to Denver and the plane landed safely. While in Malaysia, a Malaysian Airlines Boeing 737-800, bound for Tawau, a coastal Malaysian city, was forced to turn back to Kuala Lumpur International Airport on April 3rd after a, quote, technical issue and bad weather. Passengers reported they had floated up in their seats as their Boeing 737-800 took a sharp dive of about 7,000 feet. According to Flight Radar 24, the plane was cruising at 31,000 feet before dropping to 24,000 feet in a matter of seconds. It was reported that some of the passengers were screaming and crying and feared for their lives. Well, I know I sure would have been. In a statement, the airline confirmed that the flight turned back to Kuala Lumpur due to technical issues with the aircraft compounded by bad weather. It said that the pilots decided to return to Kuala Lumpur in the interest of passenger safety. The aircraft landed safely at 5:30 p.m. local time. In Singapore, a Singapore Airlines Boeing 777-300ER traveling from London to Singapore turned back shortly after takeoff on Friday, March 25th due to vibrations on one of its massive engines. There were a total of 225 passengers and 18 crew on board the flight. Flight SQ-305 encountered technical issues shortly after takeoff from London. A Singapore Airlines spokesman said the pilots made the precautionary decision to turn back to London because of the vibrations in one of the engines. The flight returned safely to London's Heathrow Airport about 2:10 p.m. local time. The airline said that its engineers are conducting investigations into the incident. Well, at Boeing's modification facility in San Antonio, Texas, where Boeing is modifying two 747-8s that will be used for the new United States Air Force One program, it was reported in March that more problems have once again interrupted the program. As a matter of fact, some of you may be familiar with a video I put out called Tequila Gate, where empty tequila bottles were found on the planes. Well, this most recent incident happened just a few months after that. This latest disruption involved attempts to place one of the two jets onto jacks, but the weight on some of the jacks exceeded the limit, causing concerns over possible aircraft damage. But after a thorough investigation, the Air Force has confirmed that no damage has occurred. However, during the course of that investigation, they did find something unrelated to the jack issue. It was discovered that one employee working on the project was not properly credentialed, and another employee failed a drug test. But an Air Force spokesman said the Air Force is holding Boeing accountable to ensure the Air Force One program meets stringent quality control requirements. To which a Boeing spokesperson said the usual, yada yada yada.
And yada yada yada. Anyway, I'm really tired today.
As far as the personal issues are concerned, an Air Force spokesman said the situation was corrected and actions taken to prevent a reoccurrence. While keeping with the Boeing theme, just breaking out of Costa Rica right now while I'm recording this, there's even more bad news for Boeing. This just in. A DHL Boeing 757 in Costa Rica experienced a hydraulic problem shortly after takeoff and returned to the airport and skidded off the runway and broke in half after landing. Okay, I'm going to go make a video on that and put that out, so you'll probably see that before you see this one. Okay, and now back to our regularly scheduled video. And finally, Boeing discovered the latest in a long line of glitches on its KC-46 Pegasus aircraft. The KC-46 is a United States Air Force troop transport and refueling tanker built around a Boeing 767 airframe with a 787 style cockpit. The newly discovered defect centers around some trim hanging down above the overwing emergency exit doors that prevents them from opening. So yeah, you see how that can be a problem. Though the KC-46 is designed as a troop transport as well as an air-to-air refueling aircraft, Boeing somehow missed this basic exit flaw in the tanker's emergency egress system. Every commercial airplane Boeing designs, including the 767, which is the basic airframe for the KC-46, is tested during certification to make sure all passengers can evacuate in an emergency within 90 seconds. However, for this defect-plagued military variant, which entered service in 2019, no such test was ever run. Boeing said that we are carefully examining our processes to determine why this issue was not identified sooner. The The newly discovered door trim problem affects all KC-46 tankers previously delivered, including the 57 already being flown by the U.S. Air Force and 2 tankers in service with the Japanese military. So Boeing will have to retrofit all those tankers once it comes up with a permanent fix. But in the meantime, Boeing released a service bulletin to the Air Force with instructions on how to temporarily repair the defect. The service bulletin says to unscrew the piece of trim that interferes with the doors and attach it with, now wait for it, it said to attach it with Velcro instead. Boeing said that this provides a temporary solution to ensure continued safe operation of the aircraft. In a statement acknowledging the problem, the Air Force said this change removes the associated emergency risk until a permanent modification can be made. Well, look, I have to be honest. Any handyman worth his or her salt knows that if you can't fix a problem with Velcro and duct tape, then the problem just isn't fixable. So there you go. That's the story of Boeing's very bad month over the past 30 days or so. Of course, some of these problems were not the fault of Boeing. Some of them were just bad luck. But some of the items we talked about are Boeing problems that they are still trying to figure out. Well, that'll wrap it up for now. Before you go, I want to give a shout out to Christina Gottlieb and Bill Kerr. Thank you for watching and your support through the Buy Me a Coffee app. Also, the Maximus merch shop has seen an uptick in sales recently, so thank you for that too. As always, you can find the merch and Buy Me a Coffee links in the description. And on your way out, please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and ring the bell. And remember, leave the rubber on the runway and your troubles on the ground. And I will see you next time in the air. Yeah, this is Maximus.